I'm often asked by my friends on what watch they should get as their first serious watch. The two brands I usually recommend are Tudor and SEIKO, but the price point of Tudor can be a little bit steep for many of us who just started the watch collecting journey, whereas the price tag of the SEIKO is a lot more digestible. In this video, I wanted to show you a new watch that SEIKO launched in 2022, and that is none other than the SEIKO 5 Sports GMT. Let's start with the facts and figures. If you have handled a SEIKO 5 Sports before, this SEIKO 5 Sports GMT would look and feel very similar to you. This GMT comes in a 42.5mm case. It has a thickness of 13.6mm and a lug width of 22mm. On paper, it seems like a pretty big watch, but because it has a rather short lug-to-lug distance of 46mm, the watch actually wears a lot smaller than the case and thickness would suggest. Here is how it looks on my 6-inch wrist. My ideal size is usually between 36 to 39mm, but I think I can carry this 42.5mm case with no issue if you ask me. The SEIKO 5 Sports GMT is water resistant up to 100 meters. It has a hard lace crystal, and houses within the case is the Auto SEIKO 4R34 movement, which has a GMT complication and offers up to 41 hours of power reserve. This GMT currently comes in 3 different color options. I have the black dial and the blue dial here, but there is also an orange dial option for you to choose from. This SEIKO 5 Sports GMT is currently selling for £400 here in the UK, or roughly $460 US. I have the green SEIKO 5 Sports in my collection, and the first thing I did when I got the watch was to take off the bracelet. Yes, I hate the bracelet that much. When I picked up the SEIKO 5 Sports GMT, the first welcome change I noticed was the new bracelet. Unlike the oyster-style bracelet on my SEIKO 5 Sports, this Jubilee-style bracelet feels very comfortable to wear, and because each link is quite small, it is easy to find a good fit for your wrist. Sadly, the same cannot be said about the oyster-style bracelet on my SEIKO 5 Sports. I find the bracelet very chunky, and I couldn't really find a good fit because the links are quite big. I ended up putting my watch on a NATO strap constantly. As you can see here, my NATO strap doesn't even fit my watch because it is short by 2mm. But I would still rather put the watch on a NATO strap because the bracelet is just so uncomfortable. This just goes to show you how much I dislike the oyster-style bracelet. I am very happy to see the new Jubilee-style bracelet that comes with the SEIKO 5 Sports GMT. The other thing I really like about the SEIKO 5 Sports GMT is the bezel insert. The whole bezel just looks completely black at times, but when the bezel catches light at the right angle, the grey and the blue color tone really comes through nicely. I think this effect is so cool, and it isn't something that I have ever seen in any other watches before. The construction of the bezel insert also feels quite unique. I don't know exactly how SEIKO did it, but it seems like there is some plastic being applied on top of a bicolor bezel insert. I think the bezel is very unique in its own way, and I would highly recommend you to check it out in person if you can. When I handle the two watches side by side, I noticed that the blue and black bezel insert is a lot louder than the grey and black insert. The color of the blue is sharp, and is also very reflective and shiny. I would say if you want attention, the blue dial is definitely the one to go for out of the two, but if you prefer a more subtle watch, the black dial with the black and grey bezel insert will be more suitable for you, I would think. I always thought I would like the blue and black bezel more, but after seeing the two watches side by side, I feel very undecided between the two. On one hand, I really like the blue version because the bezel makes the watch stand out, but at the same time, because the color of the blue is so sharp, it almost makes the watch look cheap. So there is a part of me telling me that the black and grey bezel is more wearable for me. There is one more thing on this bidirectional bezel, and that is the fact that it is quite difficult to operate. It takes quite a lot of force to rotate it, but I think it will get smoother over time once the bezel has been broken in. To be honest, I also find the bezel on my SEIKO 5 Sports hard to turn, so if you have the SEIKO 5 Sports and you have no problem with using the bezel, then I think you'll be fine with this GMT. The other thing I really like about this SEIKO 5 Sports GMT is how practical it is for what it was designed and built for. This is a GMT watch, so it is a perfect travel watch. With the current watch market craziness, I often ask myself if I would feel comfortable to wear a Rolex GMT when I travel. I don't know about you, but I certainly wouldn't feel very comfortable. This SEIKO 5 Sports GMT has a recommended retail price of £400, and at this price range, I would feel very comfortable to take it with me when I travel. Don't get me wrong, £400 is still a lot of money, but it is actually at a similar price point as an Apple Watch, which is a watch that I see everyone wearing these days. Now, let's move on to my biggest dislike about this watch, and that is the identity crisis that this GMT is facing. In case you didn't know, the number 5 in the SEIKO 5 lineup represents 5 key features: automatic movement, day-day display, water resistance, recessed crown, and a durable case and bracelet. Unlike my SEIKO 5 Sports, which features all these 5 elements, this GMT only features 4 as it does not have a day display. This makes me wonder why did SEIKO put this GMT in the SEIKO 5 lineup despite it not meeting all 5 elements of what SEIKO 5 represents. Another reason why I think this SEIKO 5 Sports GMT is having an identity crisis is because of how similar it looks compared to the Rolex GMT Master 2. I mean, the blue dial version you are seeing here just reminds me of the Batman. And adding the new Jubilee style bracelet together with a Cyclops design on the crystal makes the watch look even more similar to the Rolex GMT. Another weakness of the SEIKO 5 Sports GMT is its power reserve, or the lack thereof. The watch can only last up to 41 hours, which is pretty below average in modern standard. I usually wear a few watches on rotation during a week, and I find that power reserve is really important to me. I would be very happy if SEIKO can upgrade the power reserve to 70 hours. With that being said, I understand this is a GMT watch that costs less than $500. Asking for a better power reserve might be a bit of a stretch, but this is the one thing that I wish SEIKO can improve on in the future. Speaking of GMT, it is important to point out that this SEIKO is an office GMT and not a true GMT, meaning that the local hour hand cannot be independently adjusted, making it a little bit less user-friendly if you have to adjust the local hour a lot. But this is expected given the price point. For example, the Tudor Black Bay Pro has a true GMT complication, but at the same time, it is also 8 times more expensive than this SEIKO. There is an upside to the office GMT though, and that is the fact that there is a quick set date feature, making it much easier to change the date on the SEIKO 5 Sports GMT. In the Black Bay Pro, where there is a true GMT movement, you have to rotate the local hour hand through many times in order to set the date. This SEIKO 5 Sports GMT offers a lot for what you pay for. But do you know what else offers great value for money? You should check out this video where I discuss my go-to watch recommendation within the Tudor brand. Cheers!